The next-gen Tata Tiago. Dual-tone interior, dual smartphone deck but wireless charger, blind view monitor, pakiway. Tek kum ki kaliram, hagador ke bejam, tak sao point rewlak. Just wow.
The all-new Banalari Nexa showroom is now open at Mawyong Rim near ISBT. Explore premium Nexa cars, book your favorite, and take a test drive. Nexa. Create, inspire.
Together we achieve, together we can fly, reaching for the sky.
ICFA University, Meghalaya.
UMLA jangka UDP na West Shillong constituency uba polling do. Ulawan ra ekamat ekren hing darbar tauan ke jela, hakabay day ka jinglong jingman, jangka Pule Puthi Mynta hakajela. Uba pol las dangi ka jingkeren jong u, nakapapen kan mau pag Shlem Pule na nong ba Shillong, klasay shibuan kiriw Khraw hakari. Nakapapen kan mau, baka Shillong klasay, yakakong Jordan Dingdo na St. Mary's. Kabalalong kum ka ambassador jang kari India, Shaei Ethiopia, bat kabalatray hakipabun tali kiri. Nang tao loong, baka St. Andamans, klasay arngot ki Chief Election Commissioner, jang kari India, kata Uhari Shankar Brahma, bat UGM Lingdo. Kasyalong klasay yuba Rudy Warjri, u ambassador kari India, nang tao Justice Thank you, bat Charles Pungrop. Ulapan kan mauru, baka St. Anthony's College, klasay saungot ki menteri rang ba akajala, kata pernu agitok sangma, u Dr. Mukul sangma, u Dr. Don Kupar Roy, bat uba iki maulong. Uba apol ulaong, baka Shillong kadonya kanam, kum ka Shlem ka Pule Puthi, hakatan siya tayo lang mingi barok kaway. Bat kabadan kam Mynta kalong ban kilibiyang, ya kaburom jong Shillong, kabalahyar Mynta, siya kakardan ka bakhado haka PGI. Ula kadawru igijing duna, hakababon kikimiki ki pa Mynta, kim ko asyuban pa school, ya kikuan siya school kiba penyat ka embus. Bat ulaong, ba taray bawat ki opsar, jong ka embus ru, kin pa igi kun jong ki, haki school ba penyat ki embus, namar bakalahyar, siya papalat, nadu ki kot Pule, pat kiway pat kilyang. Ula penkut ya kajingkran na kabaong, baladan kam kerki ban pai kemat, siya ka ni kabenta, namar balada ka longkum ni, ka kabanja, pat Shaei ka Lawei, jong ka Pule Puthi, haka jela, haki lai post nam ki barwan.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I rise to raise this short duration discussion on a matter of urgent public importance, that is, on the current state of education in Meghalaya. Sir, I'd like to start with a few nuggets of information and trivia for members of this august house. There was a lady who served as India's ambassador to Ethiopia, representative to the African Union, Consul General in Russia and UK, Deputy High Commissioner in Australia and Zimbabwe, who had also served at various capacities in Spain, Romania, Bangladesh, Germany, and multiple other assignments. This personality was none other than Kong Jordania Dingdo, Shillong born and educated at St. Mary's School, Shillong. The other institution I'd like to mention here, which had produced two students who went on to occupy the office of the Chief Election Commissioner of India, St. Edmund's College, had produced Mr. Hari Shankar Brahma, former CEO, CEC, as well as J.M. Lingdo, also an alumnus of St. Edmund's College, apart from luminaries like Rudy Warjri, Professor David R. Imlay, Justice Thang Kiew, Charles Pongrop, and several others. When you look at eminent personalities from another college in Meghalaya, St. Anthony's College has produced 4 chief ministers. Mr. P.A. Sangma, RLO, Dr. Mukul Sangma, Dr. Don Kupar Roy, và E.K. Maulong. For a college in Shillong to have produced 2 occupants of the position of CEC, Chief Election Commissioner of India, that record is outranked only by St. Stephen's, Delhi. I made mentions of these personalities and the fact that they all had had their education in the state of Meghalaya and in the cradle of education in the Northeast. Shillong is something that we should not only look back with pride, but the intent of this short duration discussion is to reignite that passion, reignite that spark with which Shillong has made a name for itself in the annals of education. Sir, I recall the trip led by former Chief Minister Dr. Mukul Sangma when we had visited Bangladesh. And there was an evening where we visited the Dhaka Club. And of about 10 to 12 gentlemen whom I had the opportunity of interacting at that particular evening, I was struck by the fact that at least 8 of them had their education here in Shillong. When I was in charge of sports department, I remember being invited to St. Peter's School. And while giving away prizes, I inquired from each of those boys about their place of origin. More than half of the St. Peter's School team comprised of students who had come all the way from Dhaka and Sylhet to study at St. Peter's School. Today, let us look at facts and figures. Government may point to the improvement of Meghalaya's PGI score from 448.0 in 2024-25 to 525.7 in 2025-26, with the state moving from Akanshi 3 to Akanshi 1. This improvement is certainly welcome and should be acknowledged. However, the larger picture is concerning and disconcerting as well. Despite this substantial increase, Meghalaya remains the lowest scoring state among the 8 northeastern states in the latest PGI assessment. Meghalaya's score of 525.71 is below that of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, and Tripura. Therefore, the issue before the House is not whether Meghalaya and its education scenario has improved, but whether it is improving fast enough. An increase in the PGI score is encouraging, but if Meghalaya continues to remain at the bottom of the Northeast, we need to know why this gap with neighboring states persists and what corrective measures are being contemplated or being worked upon. So, I'm a product of our MBOs, and at one point of time, everybody would clamor to get their children sent to the board. Today, I doubt whether even officials of the MBOs would wish to send their children to MBOs, or would they rather choose ICSE institutions? Look at the logic of our examination timing. What is the justification to have the SSLC examination in the freezing months of December and January? Assam, with a much warmer climate, has those exams in the month of February. That apart leaves the students with much less time to prepare themselves. Many students who engage themselves in extracurricular activities utilize the full winter to prepare themselves and complete the syllabus, as we did when we were in school. But today, with examinations being held in December and January, it certainly is a distinct disadvantage to them. Even the prospective toppers are at a disadvantage vis-a-vis students of other boards who get more time to prepare themselves. The latest notification indicates that the SSLC examination will be completed in the month of December only. So let's look at the factors that have been responsible for this downward slide of the MBOs. One factor is the standard of books prescribed. Boards like the ICSE allow their students to choose books of their choice. Different schools choose different books. The choice of books is very important as a factor which makes everybody rush to ICSE schools. But MBOs has made it mandatory that all schools must follow books prescribed by it. Of course, the quality of those books is for every one of us to judge. We must understand and take into account one factor, that different schools of different regions of the state have different standards and caliber of education. I agree that yes, at the 9th and 10th standard, students must follow the prescribed books. But for lower and middle classes, it is astounding as to why schools are not allowed to choose books that would be commensurate with the standard of the students. So the board has introduced major structural reforms: biannual exams, removal of the best of 5, adoption of NCERT course. But this has been done without something very elementary, which is strengthening the institutional capacity first. As I speak, the board is now plagued by limited teacher retraining, weak counseling and academic support systems, lack of capacity audit before implementation of reforms, availability of examiners, teacher training, school infrastructure readiness, and only after reforms are faced and introduced, the benchmarks can be met. If increasing the number of successful students is to be achieved, then we can do a few more things. Introduce conditional flexibility, compensatory passing, grace marks linked to aggregate performance, differentiate between academic weakness and learning disadvantage, and the introduction of 2 examinations in a calendar year has put more stress on students. The expectation was that many will do better in the second exam. But on the contrary, some do not take either exams seriously. So the entire world, especially advanced nations, today are talking of digital detox. Many countries in Europe and Australia have banned the use of cell phones by anybody below the age of 16. But yesterday, I was shocked to see a reel made by a girl who is between the age of 8 and 9. She was dancing on some street, dancing in some mall, some store. A school kid of Shillong, aged between 8 and 9. And I also noticed that she already has 8,000 followers. What is this digital? In our case, it's not digital detox. We are practicing digital intox. And what are the immediate impact of early use of mobile phones by students and teachers sending their assignments and lessons online to the mobile phones of the parents? Under the guise of studying, students are now suffering from poor concentration, sleep disturbance, anxiety, depression, stress, headaches. A study conducted by Ms. D. Pasak in 2025 on Between Likes and Learning, the role of social media in the lives of higher secondary students in Jowai Town, found that social media has both positive and negative effects. While it supports learning and communication, it clearly indicates that excessive use of and unregulated use of mobile phones has led students to very poor capacity to concentrate and also affected interpersonal relationships. So does the department have any state-level data on the number or proportion of school children in Meghalaya who will be experiencing excessive or problematic mobile phone, internet, and social media use? Because Meghalaya-specific clinical data remains limited, I would like to pose this question. Has the government undertaken, or does it propose to undertake, a comprehensive statewide study covering school children in both urban and rural areas to assess the relationship between digital device use and mental health? A study in neighboring Assam reported significant levels of internet addiction associated with the mental issues which I have mentioned. This is something that the government and the department concerned must take immediate note of. What about counseling and mental health support? Will the government consider collaborating with health institutions and educational institutions using validated tools to assess smartphone and social media use among school children and its possible relationship with their mental and physical health? What are we doing to ensure that the digital devices intended to educate and empower our children do not compromise their health, education, sleep, well-being, which is the entire goal of education? So when we look at the PGI figures, apart from the observations I have made, learning outcomes, we are the lowest nationally. Access, very close to the bottom, that position being occupied by Arunachal. Infrastructure, near lower end, lowest being Bihar. Equity, joint lowest nationally with Jharkhand. Governance, yes, I must commend. Now we are relatively strong, 85.6%. Teacher education and training, we are only 0.6% above the national lowest. So, all these led us to the following conclusions. This system expanded faster than its quality improved. Too many schools, too little strategic planning. One critical analysis points out that Meghalaya had over 14,500 schools, including 206 schools with zero enrollment, and 2,269 with fewer than 10 students. Fewer than 10 students. It argues that this indicates fragmentation, duplication, and weak resource planning. Instead of endlessly adding schools, we should consolidate where appropriate and strengthen the schools that actually serve students. Several writers have pointed out that Meghalaya spends significantly on education, yet the outcomes remain weak. So with these observations, I must make a fervent plea that the department tones up its performance. The education hub of the Northeast. Imagine a school in remote Northeast producing 2 occupants of the position of Chief Election Commissioner of this country. And let's imagine if these things continue to plague us, what will be produced 30 years down the line? The road system of learning has only served to destroy this system. I'm sure we have a capable education minister. I must urge upon the need to immediately have a reforms commission in the education sector. I conclude with the remarks of William Butler Yeats, the famous Irish poet, who said, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a spark. Let that spark be lit again, and let Shillong reoccupy its position with the rest of the state following close as a team to ensure that education in Meghalaya continues to attract more students globally with the way we use English, our skills, our hospitality. I'm sure all these will add up to rebuilding education, given the right amount of good intent mingled with action. As everybody has been, I think 3-4 of us have been saying the past few days, action speaks louder than words. Wow, Sadbor's favorite words. I conclude by saying, let's act now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Iperti yang tau ke Iwan, kuwi ke prom, kuah kenai pi.
Ivan,ไปคอนแรมกว่าลายสกอตมั้งคันตอมฉันแน่พลังนี่ทำเป็นบทเองกินหลักพา
บนเส้นกิบรุงจุกลีพาเกียงตั้งกี่ขมัดพร้อมชนะยี่หยอกพยได้
còn Ivan ông rồi cái bên husu cái gram mò tao đã bốn cái gram tem etir đi pi tao con đây nè
ya khi biểu ngài nên mà em khi mà vào đây tâm anh em già hết
em sẽ là ngâm sang kêu vào cậu
Kami ni perdi yang pergi ke kuat ulai ni training ke boleh benai ni mata bawa cina bawa sains suruh.
ngaku ai amal lai
tao hikai ni suruh ya gini perlok dewa hikai gunung kong daga sempol desain go ar dah hikai sebagai desain mana dia kan ya sempol desain
Ini cek tu ram sorkar mah.
Kamu dah terang la duk mesin dia sikit dah kamu kuat